Okay, beautiful people. I hope you are having a thriving day today. I hope you are doing really well. If you like this content, then feel free to like and subscribe. If you hit the little bell there, then I think you're going to get notified when new content becomes available. And if you're interested in private coaching to sort of help you through some of the trauma from this toxic relationship or even some childhood trauma, go to www.coachkat, and that's KAT.org. And I just wanted to send this message of love to you that if you are in the throes of this and you are in this dark place with coming to terms with the fact that you were in a toxic relationship, or that you were, that you're struggling, you're hurting, you're in a lot of pain, I just want you to know that you are going to heal. You will heal. You will feel, I believe, feel joy again. I don't know if that happens passively because I don't have that experience, but I believe that since you're on these videos, since you're doing this work that you're doing, and you're looking inward and you're performing some introspection and self-reflection, that I believe that you will, you're on that journey of self-discovery. So I believe that you are going to get over on the other side of a lot of this pain. And you're going to feel a lot of joy again, and peace and happiness and homeostasis. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So in this video, what I'm going to talk about is regulating your nervous system and how this can have a huge impact on mental health and the management of trauma. If you've been in one of these relationships, or if you had childhood trauma, and most of the people that were in one of these relationships had some sort of childhood trauma or some previous trauma. So we're talking, and this is applicable even if you weren't in a narcissistically abusive relationship. This is very, very applicable just for managing your mental health. There's a field of study called Somatic experiencing, and it's all about helping to relieve your trauma, anxiety, and depression by a focus more on through the body and the nervous system regulation, rather than just sort of traditional talk therapy through psychotherapy. So it's kind of all about getting out of this, getting out of the head and getting into this, getting out of the head, into the heart, into the body, right? So the goal here is you're going to train yourself. You're going to train your nervous system. You're going to train your mind, and you're going to do it to get through the pain and the suffering without getting a nervous system deregulation. Or you're going to be able to, once you start feeling that deregulation come on, you're going to learn some techniques to manage that and to regulate your nervous system and to calm down and to get into that state of sort of parasympathetic homeostasis. So, and this is really about learning how to respond to trauma through grace and compassion and self-compassion, right? Compassion for others and compassion for self, but it all starts with having empathy for yourself. Because if your experience is that you are an empath or codependent and you've just been, pouring all of your compassion and empathy to others, but you have little, if none, for yourself, then that is an issue. You've got to start having some compassion and some self-care and self-love and empathy for yourself. So it's, I think of it as like, I'm going to let my body guide me through the grief, not this. This has not worked for me in the past on many levels to guide me through difficulties. It's about learning how to regulate your body. So when you talk about trauma too much, the old sort of psychotherapy model, some theorists believe that it's like you're re-injuring yourself. You're sort of stuck in the trauma. You're stuck in that re-experiencing of the trauma. Talk therapy has its place. I believe that you do need to talk about it. I believe that you do need to get it out. I believe that you need to either write about it. I found writing about it incredibly therapeutic, or talking about it to a therapist, but not over and over and over again for 10 years. Like, that's just my thinking on it. It's not only mine. Other people also think this, but I think that it's more about getting control of your body and your nervous system. So the nervous system doesn't actually function through thoughts. It is not that cerebral. It really functions through your feelings. And think about it. When you're having a feeling, let's talk about like depression. Okay, so you're having depression. What is that? How does that manifest in your body? Well, exhaustion, physical pain, sensitivity, right? Anger, how does that manifest? Heat, red face, muscle tension, you're all tense. And really, like, if you think about it, the cortex, the cerebral cortex, is the thinking part of your brain, right? But the limbic system is what regulates emotions. There's the three parts of the brain: the cortex, the limbic system, and sort of the midbrain, which is sort of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. That is the sort of, the survival response that comes from the very deep, primitive parts of your brain. And those deep parts, that midbrain, that lizard brain, is very powerful, and it's very fast. So, and that makes sense, because if there's some, wild boar that's chasing you and you're gonna die, like, it needs to override everything else. That primitive brain needs to kick in and, like, take control, right? Which it has a very adaptive survival mechanism. It's very important. We need that to survive, right, on some level. But what's happened with trauma is that midbrain, that primitive brain, has been hijacked, and you, or people who have experienced a lot of trauma, they're in, like, this constant state of trauma and dysregulation. So somatic experiencing, really what it does is it kind of describes how trauma can get trapped in your nervous system. And your nervous system is kicking into high alert. You're experiencing, these symptoms of complex PTSD. It could be hypervigilance, fear, anxiety, terror. You could start having anxiety, perseverations. You feel threat everywhere. You're hyper alert. You're hyper aroused. So, again, this trauma response is your survival response. It's an adaptive response to a perceived threat or perceived danger. And when we get stuck because of trauma, if we have trauma, we can get stuck in that place, and it makes us mentally and spiritually and physically sick. So what we really need to do is work through that. And, that's, again, we might see some of the symptoms of this are that you see threat everywhere. You might take offense at things. You might look for danger everywhere. You're hyper vigilant. You feel unsafe. You feel afraid. In my case, sometimes my heart would start beating, and I feel so much anxiety in my chest, and I don't know how to, control it. Or you have symptoms of insomnia. You can't sleep. You wake up with night terrors. You wake up with night sweats. You're just in this state of sort of hyper arousal. And in some cases, it's hypo arousal, where you're just shut down. You have lethargy. You have no desire to get off the couch. You don't care about anything you used to feel joy about. You can't tap into the place of peace within you, right? And so, again, here's the perceived threat, and we are going to react in our, with our midbrain, with our primitive brain. That is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. The fawn response is sort of the codependence, right? So fight could look like you're fighting with you have road rage, or you're yelling at people, or you're getting into fights. Or the freeze could be, you're immobilized, you don't talk, you shut down, you go within, you're a turtle in the shell, you don't feel like doing anything, you can't get out of your space, you have no motivation to do anything. Flight can be you're running away from any sign of intimacy, freaks you out, you run away. Or flight, I've noticed this for myself. I've come into this realization that for me, a lot of times flight is manifested when I'm overly busy, I'm overly committed, I'm doing this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, and I'm going. And that's kind of like that constant state of busyness is I've come to recognize it's part of my flight response. And when I'm, newly experienced trauma, that flight can go kind of crazy, but then I have learned the techniques, or some of them, to slow it down and to recognize, oh, that's my trauma response. I need to calm down, not overcommit, not think I need to climb every single mountain that I drive by, and I've got to jump in every body of water that, you know what I mean? So, it's different for everyone. But, and then there's the fawn, which is the people pleasing. That can kick into high gear, where you're trying to save the world. You're trying to save everyone. You're trying to prevent everyone else from having, this bad experience. And I think this channel is an example of my codependent response. So you feel like you just got to save the world because you don't want them to have this same pain, right? But again, a lot of times when you're in one of these 4 trauma responses, you're not actually feeling your own feelings, experiencing them, working through them, and learning how to regulate your nervous system, right? So, again, I mentioned you're on high alert. If you stay in this state of hyperarousal or hypoarousal too long, you can get physical and mental illnesses. You can get, anxiety disorders. You can get, severe clinical depression. Like, if you're staying in this trauma response and your body is constantly dysregulated, it can manifest in all sorts of mental and physical illnesses. Just look at the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. It was a study, Kaiser in San Diego did a study with 17,000 people. And in this particular case, it was all sort of white, middle-class Americans that had medical insurance. So, affluent and on some level enough to afford medical insurance. And they were all, they were given the ACE, Google it, Adverse Childhood Experiences, the ACE score. And, I think it's pretty important to know what your ACE score is, because if you had an ACE score of, say, 4 or 5 or 6, like anything higher than 4 is, high risk. So ACE, you're going to have 1. If your parents were divorced, that's a 1. If you experience any physical abuse, that's a 2. If you had verbal abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, that's a 3. So, determining what that ACE score is very important. And then looking at some of the results from that ACE study, people that experienced, higher levels of, childhood trauma have a much greater susceptibility to heart disease, lung disease, addiction, all sorts of issues, being in a domestic violence situation, being a victim of violence, being violent themselves, like all of these, emotional, mental, physical problems just based on that, childhood trauma experience. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but the fight, flight, freeze, so I guess the main thing is if your body stays dysregulated, you're in that state of hyperarousal, then you are going to probably have physical, mental manifestations of sickness. And the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response originally it was meant to keep you alive, and to kick you into action and to help you take action to survive, and you need that. But we need to not stay in that place. We need to learn how to, calm down and get into sort of, homeostasis or a calm state. And really it's about controlling or getting back to that parasympathetic, calm homeostasis, nervous system where you just feel good. It's about returning to a sense of safety and well-being, right? But sometimes we get stuck and before we get to the other side of that trauma. So stuck can look like overthinking, shutting down, suppressing emotions. And somatic experiencing of getting it through your body, doing this somatic body work is going to help you to get in tune with your body, to listen to your body, and to be in tune with your emotions and get yourself back to a calm, regulated state. We need to get our bodies back to a calm, regulated state to heal the trauma, the depression, and to heal your nervous system. And, again, I mentioned your trauma response could be anything, in any one of those 4 things I talked about. But again, here are some ways that you can really start to regulate your nervous system. Meditation, yoga. I'm a rock climber. I love to climb. You can go swimming or surfing in the ocean. You can do tapping. You can do a lot of breath work. A friend of mine was talking about the Wim Hof method. I don't know much about it, but it's a lot to do with breath work. You can practice mindfulness, practice being in the present moment, practice getting into the present moment. Because when you are living with this traumatized brain, you're trained, your body and your nervous system is trained to hyper focus on threat in a very vigilant state. And again, the cumulative effects of this can develop depression and just all sorts of problems. So it's really, really important that you calm down your stress psychology, that you calm your body down and find safety in your life. And so other ways, other ways to do this is a community support group. You need, I believe that a support group is very helpful, of safe people, loving people, nurturing people that are here for you, that love you, that want what's best for you, that can, just make you feel supported. And like, I think about, there's a few people in this world that I think about, and I'm like, just the fact that these three beautiful human beings, these three girlfriends I have, are in the world, like, makes me feel so happy and calm and secure. So I have a couple of friends where if I think about them, then it actually helps me to regulate my nervous system, because I'm like, that person has my back. Like, that person would never throw me under the bus, And I know if you were with a narcissist, you probably were thrown under the bus in an egregious way. And I'm so sorry for that. I know how painful that is. I know how just awful it is for you. But think about the few, the people in your life where you're like, that person really has my back. Like, that person is really supporting me, and I just feel so loved and supported. So I feel like that's so key, is to have a group of people that you love and that love you, and you feel supported, and they're safe people. They're people that you can go to and that they have empathy. You feel their empathy. I'm really vigilant now about, I don't like to spend a lot of time with people that are low on the empathy scale. I don't care what their diagnosis is. It's really, I don't want to spend time with people that have low empathy, that can't imagine what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes. Like, that is, to me, that's not a safe place to spend time. So I typically am pretty careful about surrounding myself with people that have open hearts and that are connected to their empathetic and compassionate response. So I really think it's important to sort of work on learning how to regulate your nervous system, learning how to bring your body, when you're triggered, bring your body into a state of homeostasis, bring your body, through the emotional flashbacks, and really just calm yourself down. And like, on a super, super basic level, while you're in that state, if you're getting triggered and your nervous system is going crazy because of this trauma, take 10 deep breaths. Like, that's really simple. Like, really simple. Join a meditation group, take a yoga class, put on a guided yoga meditation for trauma. Calm down your nervous system. Go jump in the ocean. Go climb a rock. Go for a walk in the woods. A friend of mine was talking about, I think they call it forest bathing. It's something that it happens, I think it's in Japan. It's about forest bathing, and it's this idea, I think it's Japan, where you go out into the wilderness and you put, you can rub your fingers on the trees to get some of the essential oils, and you can just smell the plants and put your face in the plants or put your feet in the water, and like, you're getting like this bath from the forest. And I realize I always do that. Like, when I go into the woods, I'm constantly like smelling things and putting, I'm eating things. I've taken some classes, so I know what I can and cannot eat, but I'm like always like feeling everything around me. And I didn't know that that was like a healing thing. I just did it because I just like the way weird plants smell. But so I love that. I love that they call it forest bathing. So I don't know if this video is helpful for you, but I'm really trying to focus on learning as much as I can about helping you guys to actually get through the trauma to the other side. Because what you don't want to do is get stuck in the place where you've given all of your power to somebody that has a cluster B personality disorder. They don't get to tell you that they don't get to dictate your life for you. You get to have a big, beautiful, joyful, happy, wonderful life, and nobody gets to steal your joy. They really don't. And I know that if you're in this pain and you're new in this and you're going through it, I know that it's hellish and it feels like you're never going to come out. but I promise you, you are going to come out, you're going to heal, you're going to get better. But I really think you've got to do your work. And that means, looking at ways to regulate your nervous system, doing a lot of self-care, exercise, lots of water, meditation, prayer, a spiritual practice, a spiritual community. All of these are some of the tools that have helped me to survive. So thank you so much. And don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that stuff. So thanks. Have a good day. Bye.